All right. I'm live on LinkedIn. I'm live on YouTube. I have sent everybody an invite on WhatsApp. Oh, Mr. Patil, good morning. Hi, thanks for taking up my question yesterday. I caught up with the episode via recorded video. Ah, glad. I missed you. I said we're gonna talk about that. And so we did. Good morning. I hope you can hear me properly. I hope I am audible and that's not a problem. I do not want a mishap. No technical difficulties. And yeah, a very big, yes, it's clear. A very big technical difficulty is hair. It's so awkward to set your hair. And I'm a guy who's very conscious with camera. So I get very awkward. It's one of the reasons I started doing this so I can be less awkward while I talk. Anyway, so I am audible on LinkedIn. I'm just waiting for a cue on. I'm sorry, I am audible on YouTube. I'm just waiting for a cue on LinkedIn. I've got a thumbs up from Mr. Himanshu Sharma. I guess that means I'm audible on LinkedIn as well. I will have to get a comment on that because without the comment, we don't want to have another episode 31 or was it 32? Whatever it was, where I had to repeat myself. That wouldn't be nice. It's 8:04. So, LinkedIn, if you can hear me, say something. LinkedIn. I have to get a comment on that because without the comment, Perfect. So I just checked. I am live on LinkedIn as well. And here we go. We will begin. Bum 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 bum. Yes, loud and clear, says Mr. Himanshu Sharma. Thank you, Mr. Sharma. Very nice of you. Bum 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 bum. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Thinker's Frequency. We're having such a good time. This is the peak of human civilization. We're working so hard, doing such good work for ourselves, our parents, our kids, our siblings, our husbands, our wives, our friends, everybody. Well, not other people's husbands and wives, I hope. And just when we thought things couldn't get any better, like they couldn't possibly get any better, well, they just did. Call it divine intervention, folks. But things just got a whole lot better. Now we have Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. So let's continue with our journey of reading between the lines, things that are especially interesting and important in the world of business and finance. Let's go! Oh, but before we go, we've got to follow a tradition, right? The sacred tradition of the simultaneous sip. We'll all sip something together. And all we need for the simultaneous sip is a cup or mug or glass, a tank, a chalice or stein, a canteen jug or flask or a vessel of any kind. Pour it with your favorite liquid. Today I'm having coffee. Cold. Let's go. Oh my god. Beautiful. I'll do it again. Sublime. You know what the simultaneous sip says, right? You know what the simultaneous sip says, don't you? It says that you're not alone. It says that we are in this together. And that's such a nice thing to say. Well, that out of the way, let's go. JSW brushes up market standing with 9,000 crore Akzo Nobel India deal. So, viewers of Thinker's Frequency would remember we talked about how Akzo Nobel, the Japanese paints company, was actually looking at selling its paint unit. You remember? For 9,000, 12,000 crore, they were looking at a valuation of that. Akzo Nobel runs Dulux. So they were looking at selling that unit. and JSW is going to be buying it for 9,000 crores. JSW brushes, JSW paints. So the paint sector is really heating up. This means a bad news for Asian Paints, for Berger Paints, because these guys were number one, number two, and now Birla has come in. Birla Paints, it's really going crazy, and the in the paint domain, doing to the paint sector what Geo did to telecom. Again, bad analogy, but you get the drift. And now JSW is coming in as well. So you're gonna look at a lot of paint companies fighting. I wonder why this is happening though, because India is going through a consumption decline. Even real estate sector is looking at a consumption decline. Uh, the last 8 quarters had a serious growth as far as the real estate consumption is considered. And now we're all expecting and looking at a slowdown. And it's happening across the country. 7 cities, top 7 markets. The real estate deals are going low. And not just commercial, household, domestic real estate sales. What is it called? One is commercial and one is what is this called? That word for the housing real estate. So housing real estate and commercial real estate are both looking at some sort of slowdown, and people expect that slowdown to last a few quarters. Then why is so much of action happening in the paint sector? It's a good question. It's a good question. This probably means that these paint companies know something about the future of uh, the consumption story, the real estate story that is currently not residential. Yeah, sorry, Mr. Sharma. Residential. So, residential real estate and commercial real estate, they are both looking at a slowdown. But still, you're seeing a lot of action. First, Birla entered paints. Now, JSW is entering paints, and they're going crazy on it. So, Kansai Nerolac, uh, this particular Berger paints and Asian paints, they're going to be looking at tough times. So, maybe these people know something about we don't. JSW Paints is going to be the fourth largest player in decorative paints and second in the industrial segment. So that's interesting. That's interesting. Torrent Pharma is essentially looking to buy JB Chemical. Now JB Chemical, Torrent, this is particularly a 1.6 billion dollar financing they're looking at it. JB Chemicals market cap is 28,000 crores. That's $3.5 billion dollars essentially. And Torrent is seventh largest drug company in India, which has a market cap of like 14, 15 billion dollars, 16 billion dollars. So they are essentially looking at now JB Chemicals is a controversial company in my eyes. I'll tell you why. JB Chemicals makes a brand called Rantac, and Rantac's salt, the salt behind Rantac, the drug, is ranitidine, and ranitidine has been proven to be a carcinogenic. That means ranitidine has proven to be a cancer causing drug. So use of ranitidine has beyond a reasonable doubt been linked to cancer. But the Indian pharma space is yet to move on that decision. So Europe and America have banned ranitidine, but Indian pharma said we ought to study this more, which means sooner or later, I guess, ranitidine is going to be banned in India as well. However, this company is still selling ranitidine, and a lot of lobbying, of course, happening as far as the whole drug fraternity is considered. So JB Chemicals is that company, and now uh, it's going to be the pharma's largest acquisition, $2.4 billion deal. Looking forward to deals, a lot of IPOs are firing up in Indian markets, as we discussed. Mr. Chirag Patil says something. Stagnation of growth in their cash cow businesses, hence they are doing vertical integration. Well, that is true for that particular aspect is true for Birlas, but not JSW. JSW is killing it, right? JSW steel business. They had this Bhushan Power Steel. They have a lot of they're setting up units in US, manufacturing units in US. Their business is booming. JSW is like doing really well. So not JSW. That could have been a very good argument that maybe the industry is not so green, but since the parent companies of these particular movers are struggling, maybe they're looking at another green pasture or something which they think they can fight. But that is not true for JSW. JSW has its hand in a lot of pickles. So and good ones. So that's that. Moving forward to deals, coming back to deals, there's a lot of IPO action happening, and there was there were IPOs of 15,000 crores offer for sale, which got a bid of 1.8 lakh crore. So 15,000 crore is less than $2 billion, and 1.8 lakh crores is roughly $25 billion. And so you can imagine five issues subscribed 12x. One of them was HDB, where people lost a lot of money, but still, IPO market is heating up. That seems to be a good news for companies who are going to IPO. A lot of them we discussed yesterday, the finance people, a lot of Pine Labs, and so on and so forth. Now Wakefit is also looking at going IPO. So this could be good news for people going the IPO way. But the problem with this is this sentiment is right now. So now companies, when they plan their moves right now, looking at the sector, by the time they IPO in the next 9 months, the world could be very different. So that's something to always think about. The times keep changing, and right now the IPO market is hot, but it's no guarantee of what is to come in future. Madam Nirmala Sitharaman said, "Step up lending, garner deposits." Set up lending, garner deposits, says Madam Sitharaman to banks. Like that's like a parents, right? कि अच्छे से पढ़ो और अच्छे से खेलो भी और को करिकुलर एक्टिविटीज में भी आगे बढ़ो. लेकिन ऐसा होता नहीं है ना. It's not that easy, because as we discussed, step up lending, good. You talk about step up lending, that's fine. You reduce the repo rates by 0.5%, the lending rates are gonna come down. Lending should go up because lower interest rates should lead to more lending, fine. But garner deposits, that's an oxymoron, right? Because with the lower interest rates, the deposit rates will also come down. And if deposit rates come down, how do you expect people to be depositing money in FDs, right? And how do you expect banks to be garnering deposits? So they can step up lending, but deposits will obviously slow down, especially on the pretext of people starting to invest their money. So as we discussed, Indians are not really looking at storing money in bank accounts now. It's gone out of favor. What people do, as they perhaps should, is invest that money in index and mutual funds and stocks, direct equities. So when Madam Sitharaman says that garner deposits, sorry, step up lending, garner deposits, it's like padho bhi aur khelo bhi. Not very practical. But let's see how the banking sector responds to that. Moving on, more non-engineering students breach the B school wall. Business schools, which had 85 to 90% of engineering people, are looking at non-engineering people like arts and so on and so forth. And also, what's not written in the article is B schools have long been favoring females. So for gender diversity and for whatnot. So if you're a man and if you're an engineer, tough break for you, man. Tough break for you. You gotta pay for all the years of oppression, huh? Anyway, Finance Ministry report says India in a Goldilocks situation. Goldilocks situation is essentially a very good. There goes the placement report, Mr. Perspective says. Uh, uh, India in a Goldilocks situation, says Ministry. They're saying external factors, whatever, we are doing well, and that's actually true. That's actually true. India is doing well. The inflation is down, uh, the lending rates are low, but the only problem is the consumption. The consumption story is the only problem, right? And because of the consumption story, uh, private capex is also another problem. They're all linked. Everything is linked as we see. So for the private capex, the government is stepping up its own reports. They want to see the private capex going up. So we talked about how India sees very less of private capex. You remember? So Niti Aayog is drawing a plan to push private capex. So they're saying that in 2025-2026, private sector had a 4.8 lakh crores, 4.9 lakh crore private capex, while the government had 11.2 lakh crore private capex, right? Same goes for 2023 and 2021. A few years like 2024, 2025, which was the highest for private capex, it saw 6.5 lakh crores from private and 11 lakh crores from government. So this is not cool with the government. The government believes that we've got to step up the private capex. Why? Because if the private capex steps up, you're going to see new jobs, you're going to see new employment opportunities, and you're going to see new products getting created or IP getting created or so on and so forth, which will lead to new economic outcomes, which might lead to stepping up of the consumption gain. Because the problem is the capex that the government gets involved in, it doesn't lead to that kind of jobs. Let's say NHAI, when it goes with the capex spree, right? It making roads and stuff. What kind of people do they employ? That's like slightly low income category people, which construction can employ and so on and so forth, right? And private companies at the moment and have been for a long time just sitting and waiting on their money. So that particularly is a trouble. But Niti Aayog is looking at the Goldilocks situation is intact for the country, which is nice. No flip flopping. Prada steps up, credits India after backlash. So something happened in the fashion world, which obviously I didn't care much about. But Prada, the very famous company in the fashion world, they essentially copied the Kolhapuri chappal design. They just ripped it off, right, and displayed it in an event or something, and they didn't even credit the Kolhapuri traditional artisans or community of artisans which have essentially come up with that design, right? It's a very very old design for India. They didn't do that, so it led to social media backlash for Prada, that look at these guys, ethically bankrupt, they're stealing Kolhapuri artisans' designs and not even giving them credit, and which led to a legal, if not a case, a legal intellectual masturbation session. So people thought, like, how can this be happening? I mean, there's something called GI code that people can take, but is that GI code enforceable? That to that design, because it's an ancient design, no specific company can have a copyright on it. But can a country enforce that kind of? So it's a legal debate which is happening, and it's also talking about the ethics of business. Let's say if there's nothing as far as the intellectual property scene is considered, would you still consider cheating? Would you still, as a fashion player, because fashion is all about intellectual property, fashion is all about creativity and new design, would you just choose to rip somebody off and not even credit them, forget about paying them? So that's a very good question, which is propping up. Not too much consequence though. In a few days, this news will be forgotten, and that'll be that. Mr. Rajnath Singh is calling for a permanent border solution in talks with China's dong. Dong is also a slang for the male organ, which is funny. But China's defense minister is called Dong, and Mr. Rajnath Singh is talking about a possible permanent solution as far as border clashes are considered, because that's a real thorn up India's butt, and there's no respite from it. So let's see what happens there. It's a very complicated scenario. COA says it's competent to deal with the IWT dispute. MEA terms quote illegal. So, court of arbitration, it's uh, it's asking to mediate in the Indus Water Treaty, which India has obeyed, and Ministry of External Affairs said this court is illegal. We don't listen to this, which is fair, right? Which is fair considering whatever is happening. Considering whatever is happening in the geopolitical space, so you've got to look at these particular news items in conjunction. So this is what's happening in China. India didn't sign the SEO document, the collective document of SEO. That was one statement. Then the IWT thing is going on. That's another statement. Then India is looking at banning imports, or let's say regulating imports from of jute from Bangladesh, and also looking at different kind of trade operations with Bangladesh. That's third news, and also looking at having its own water agreement, re-looking at the water agreement which existed with Bangladesh. That's third news, and fourth news is that America is favoring Pakistan, and it's asked for Pakistan's input to actually talk about. Iranian issue, Iranian nuclear issue. So Pakistan as a force for peace in the Middle East. So all of these four things have to be looked at in conjunction, and that sort of is not such a great news, right? As discussed yesterday. So amid Chinese fishing in Indian waters, MDL Masgor Dock buys controlling stake in Colombo shipyard. So Masgor Dock is India's largest shipyard company, and it's very much related to the Indian defense sector, and they have bought a controlling stake in Colombo shipyard, and it's a very strategic play. Colombo shipyard has a lot of scope for expansion, and managing that particular shipyard is essentially going to be strategically beneficial. So 52 million, 53 million should be good for Masgor Dock stock. Should be good for Masgor Dock stock, right? MDL. Let's see what happens there. Moving forward, serious amount of chit chat happening in the world of politics, with secularism, socialism, and everything getting into discussion. But we're not gonna get into that because that will be tricky waters. Tricky waters. Starlink soon to get regulators' final approval for India entry. So Starlink, as you know, is the Satcom operator of Mr. Elon Musk, and it's gonna get regulators' final approval now. But this is not the end of the road. This doesn't mean that Starlink will start its services, because after the regulators' approval, there are security clearances. So it's got to pass those security tests, security clearances, and only then it will be allowed. So this particular regulator's final approval, Geo Satellite and Eutelsat OneWeb. Eutelsat OneWeb is Bharti's company, and Geo Satellite is Geo's company, of course. They already got this in 2022, I guess, right? So I'll just confirm. When OneWeb got the Satcom permit in 21, while Geo Satellite got it in 2022. So these people got this like 3-4 years ago, but the security clearance test has not happened, and they've not been given the clearance as yet. So you can expect some lag as far as actual operations of Starlink to begin in the country. Interestingly, for people who are not aware, viewers of Thinkers Frequency know it already. Starlink is gonna get distributed via Airtel and also Reliance. So Airtel has Bharti Eutelstat, Bharti OneWeb Eutelstat. Jio has Geo Satellite, and they're going to distribute these companies, of course, services of them, and they're also going to be distributing Tesla, Starlink, both of them. And then Idea has also come up. Vodafone Idea has also come up with their own satcom service. They've tied up with the US company, which was some Sat Space or some. I'm forgetting the name. So Airtel is trailing in net user additions as far as the telecom sector is considered in general, the voice and data. Jio is leading it, and Vodafone Idea and BSNL have lost more. So Jio adds nearly 3 million users, 5G FWA subscribers fall, but Jio is at 40% share, followed by 30%. So as of May, Jio continued the lead of India market for wireless services with 40.92 market share, followed by Airtel at 33%. Vodafone at 17% and BSNL at 7.8%. So Vodafone is going down, and if you remember, the 7 sectors, 7 cities, satellites where it had most share, 50% of Vodafone's revenue comes from those 7 places. It's also going to be looking at a tough time there. So, you know, blame Abhishek Bachchan. Moving on, India's chicken craze takes wing. Gen Z and millennials are gorging on fried chicken and chicken wings, leading to an unprecedented surge in demand and leaving industry scrambling for supply. Well, I'm a vegetarian, so I'm not going to talk about that. uh, Mahindra Lifespace is going to redevelop Mumbai housing project with 12,500 crores. That's okay. So warehousing is another. So yesterday we discussed about the beauty of logistics sector and how Mr. Nitin Gadkari talked about India's spend on logistics as a percentage of GDP. It was 16% earlier. So India used to spend 16% on logistics, and now it's come down to 10%. Okay, so that's great news. And now Mr. Gadkari is talking about Mr. Talk is talking about bringing it down to 9%, because when you bring down the cost of logistics, everything goes up. Everything goes up as the logistics go down. If you can make efficient logistics, the world just, there's a quote on that. It's called, "The road has the answers to everything." So if the road has if you have better roads, if your logistics costs are down, everything goes good. But with logistics, there is an ancillary sector called the warehousing sector. Now this warehousing sector has been a laggard as far as India is considered. So I'll give you a number, a very interesting number. India currently offers zero point 0.2 square feet of quality warehousing per urban resident. Zero point 0.2. Okay, far behind China, 8.6. So 0.2 versus 8.6 in China. 8.6 is just extraordinary, right? Can't even calculate the. So 5 times is 1. 5 is 40 times. So China's high quality quality warehousing is 40 times, no, 43 times more than India, and US is 47.3. So you can imagine India is at 0.2, but all companies are talking about the improvements they are facing. So logistics sector is the sector which actually is looking at a fillip, and you can expect it to have some sort of good news happening sometime soon. Reported improvement in logistics access through government backed programs. 88% manufacturers scaling up due to infra-led confidence. 95% reported improvement in access. 86% respondents said government infra initiatives have positively influenced BizOps. And you know what was the inflection point of India considering its logistics sector? It was COVID. So COVID brought these things into perspective in a very, very big way. Because when COVID happened, we saw that India doesn't have cold storages. It doesn't have containers. There's something called containers, the blue metal big boxes where things are stored. India didn't have it, and didn't even have the production of it. So a lot of companies then stepped in to make containers. Even that, so that these kinds of industries. So something, when you have such growth in logistics, the next business is obviously warehousing, which is how things happen, right? Itihas. There's something that I want to shed some light on. Amish Tripathi, Mr. Amish Tripathi, the very, very influential author behind Immortals of Maluha. Yeah, good book, and in fact, the entire trilogy. He is now the founder of Tara Gaming, and he says that Indian Itihas, which Westerners refer to as mythology, it has a serious potential as far as gaming is considered. So he says that gaming is a $250 billion industry, uh, you know, in the world, and it has a lot of potential of exporting Indian culture abroad. This is so well said. It is so well said. If you look at gaming versus Bollywood, let's say film industry, not just Bollywood, film industry. Did you know that gaming is like many, many times bigger than the film industry? So gaming is valued at $250 billion, right? And what did films? So gaming made a revenue of 188 billion in the last year, 188 or something. Okay, films last year had a box office of somewhere around 33 billion, and music had entire music cataloging everything at 26 billion. So 33 billion plus 27 billion, you can say 40 and 20, $60 billion. The movie business makes $60 billion a year from box office and music sales all throughout, while the gaming industry makes $188 billion in sales. So you can imagine the scope India has as far as the gaming industry is considered, as far as the storytelling is considered. So when we talk about Bollywood, we talk about the export of culture. We talk about the export of Indian culture, Indian stories, and so on and so forth. But how well is Bollywood doing that? Do you think Bollywood is actually doing anything as far as cultural export is considered? It's not making money. Definitely not making money anymore. It's a shitty business. And then it's also a bad cultural export, right? Based on whatever we do. But if Mr. Amish Tripathi is to be looked at, uh, Indian mythology could have very interactive, very high value, high production value games, which could be huge, right? So, and if somebody is good for this job, it's Mr. Amish Tripathi, because he proved himself as a worthy, let's say, uh, there's a word for this, right? A worthy person to take the baton forward. And Mr. Amish Tripathi, good article, and also very important. India needs to focus on gaming. With gaming, you're gonna see a lot of creative jobs getting created, and also technological jobs are creating, and also the gaming's threshold has come down. Earlier, gaming used to have very specific skill sets which just didn't exist in India. But now, with AI and everything, you can look at gaming as a very, very nice play. Anyway, moving forward, Delhi is set to become a bigger link in India's supply chain. Again, something to do with logistics and warehousing. 8,000 operational factories, 4 lakh workers in Delhi. It could be playing a better role. Moving forward, ITC reports weakest FMC consumer spend in a decade. ITC, Indian Tobacco Company, not just tobacco, it makes a lot of cigarettes, of course, but it also has Sunfeast, Yippee Noodles, and so on and so forth. A lot of brands. ITC is a huge conglomerate. I remember tracking ITC share was when it was in 200s, and in fact 120 or something. Right now it's like 480 or 500, and that's just like 4 5 years ago. So it could have tripled the money, and it did make money for us. But uh, you know, you're never happy with the money you make. Anyway, BPSL RP has filed a review plea on JSW verdict. So the resolution professional behind the BPSL, Bhushan Power Steel, which was acquired by JSW, we've discussed this a lot, that JSW acquired BPSL And 4 years later, Supreme Court said that your acquisition is illegal. And then everybody started crying, Prabhu, please don't do this. Everything is gonna get screwed. So the Supreme Court said, let it be, let the status quo. And now the resolution professional is saying that the order of Supreme Court was based on some wrong information. So we're not disrespecting the Supreme Court. We're saying that some evidences which were attached, they were not proper. So he says, the RP has claimed that certain documents were overlooked in the Apex Court judgment. He states that he has taken an undertaking to review to ensure JSW's past connections were examined. Also claims that filed Form H as required. Additionally, he asserts he sought the relevant extensions to condone delays in resolution process. So that's what's happening. Everybody is basically stuck. Like what? Anyway, so ITC, we talked about how it's facing. The biggest problem with India right now is the consumer spend. That's not happening. Everything is good. Inflation is in control. The economy is seemingly growing. There's a lot of growth. Exports are doing well, 900 billion. But consumption isn't happening. Something is missing. And you ought to guess what? Why are people not spending money? Is it income inequality, which people say that whatever growth is happening in a very, very tiny sector? Maybe, but not sure. Moving on. New blueprint for rail control and ops in the works. So there's a lot of manual management happening at railways, which led to some accidents, some errors, and some real losses as far as trains are considered. So the Indian Railways is essentially upgrading its century-old train control systems. So they say that while we are going to learn from everybody like Japan, Germany, and all the good train operating countries, India has its own unique challenges. India's railways are just next level complicated. Why? Because while the railway board will use learnings from railway systems of Japan, Russia, Germany, Switzerland, France, and Spain, ready-made systems cannot be imported as Indian Railways operations are uniquely complex. Complex multi-line operations, proliferation of long-haul freight trains, semi-high-speed train sets, and multiplicity of types rolling stock have complicated operations efficiently. It's very complicated, and so they are going to look at upgrading of the century-old control system, less manual, more automation, more so on and so forth. But still, it's not an easy fix is what they're trying to tell us. To boost consumer spending, Mr. Patil says, is it why government is doubling down on free money schemes? When you say free money, Mr. Chirag Patil, do you mean the lending rate reduction? Oh no, you're talking about the freebies, the election freebies, I'm assuming. Oh no, that's no way to. That's just to win elections. Freebies, if you're referring to freebies, that Ladli Behan Yojana and yes, Ladli Behan. So no, that's just bribing people to vote for them. That has nothing to do with nation building. That has nothing to do with growth and development of nation in any way or form. Because 2,500 rupees a month, even if you give to everybody, it will just lead to nothing. So that is nothing. So that's just bribing people. Mr. Amrit Raj says, car sales are an indicator for this income disparity. Growth without distribution or widening the pie. SUV and high-end automobiles are selling well, not the small cars. As viewers of Thinkers Frequency. You even put it in bracket. You're right. What can the government do to boost consumer spending? Well, that's a $4 trillion question right now. That's a $4 trillion question, Mr. Chirag Patil. What can the government do to boost the consumer spending? They've already reduced the lending rates. They have brought down the inflation. The next move, I think, could be bringing down the fuel prices, if that's possible. Tax less. They already did tax less. So Mr. Perspective says tax less, but they already did that. You remember? 12 lakh up to 12 lakh, no income tax up till 12 lakh. That was also a move in this direction only, just to spur that consumption growth. When US gave away money in COVID, it did boost consumer spending. That's why I was thinking on those lines. So no, no, not really, Mr. Patil. Anyway, Mr. Harsh Gupta says, sorry, just joined. What are you drinking today, man? Coffee, cold. Anyway, so you know, they already taxed less. So the government has already uh, had zero income tax for 12 lakhs. It reduced the lending rates. It's brought down the inflation. It's done a lot of things. Free money is not the solution, unfortunately. I think I think uh, now simplified tax as uh, FMCG growth. That's why everybody's crying right now. Subramaniam Swamy wrote a book in 2018. It was called Reset, and that's what he said, that you know, if the consumer spending, you look at, if it's not coming up, there is a serious problem in the economy with household, and gold loans are up at a rise. So whatever consumer spending is happening in the country, a lot of it is coming through gold loans. Now this is something very very unique, because using gold as a collateral, it's not characteristic of the Indian family, you know. But gold prices rose, so perhaps gold loans also, saw Philip. But it is a worry. So Mr. Subramaniam Swamy, what he says is, if consumption doesn't increase, corporate private capex wouldn't increase. There's gonna be a reduction in the corporate operations. If that increase, the consumption will decrease further. This, and it's a downward spiral. And he called it tailspin. And you're right, Mr. Amrit Raj. Car sales, SUV going up. Mr. RC Bhargav says whatever he says as far as this is considered, right? So it's a valid question, and a $4 trillion question, and we'll have to do a lot of deep analysis to understand how can we bring it up. Moving on, let's move on. Uh, India records current account surplus of $13.5 billion in March quarter. So current account surplus is something new for India. India used to have a current account deficit problem, CAD deficit. In 2013, 2012, 2013, our CAD was at a 4%. CAD is basically exports, difference between exports and imports. So if you're exporting more, importing less, you're going to have a current account surplus. And if you're going to import more and export less, you have a current account deficit. So at this moment, we have a current account surplus, and it's driven by a rise in exports of services. And what we are looking at is basically keeping it consistent, right? Because that's, so India's current account balance recorded high surplus, paced by robust growth in software exports, says RBI. Same quarter last year we had $4.6 billion in surplus. Now the same quarter this year we have $13.5 billion. Software income was 41 billion compared with 36 billion in the last year. For the whole FY25, the current account deficit was at $23 billion, or 0.6% of GDP. So from 4% of CAD, current account deficit, we have come to 0.6% of CAD, right? Which is great progress. But what we want is a current account surplus running through to make us go nice. So that said, net outgo on the primary income account reflecting payments on investment income and so on and so forth. So yeah, I hope I'm not missing anything. Okay. Valuation gains in RBI's reserves account. Deposits rise 10.4%, outpacing credit growth. CD ratio drops. So again, look at this. We've talked a lot about this at Thinkers Frequency, where we said how front loading affects everything, right? Do you remember? We talked a lot about front loading. So this front loading has also happened again here. And how? So RBI said we're going to reduce the interest rates. With interest rate reduction, deposit rates will also get reduced. If deposit rates get reduced, people know that their FDs will be cheaper. They'll not make as much money in FDs. So what did people started doing? They flocked on FDs right before the window starts closing. So deposits rose 10.4%, increase in the last 30 days due to deposits' desire to bank their idle funds. So deposits went up and now they're gonna go down because whenever front loading happens, you see a lot of front loading, a lot of hoarding, and then it sees a consequent decline. So deposits are gonna go down because they've already seen an upward movement, which means it's gonna be bad for the banking stocks in the next quarter or so. So that's something to be looked at, right? Geo BlackRock gets SEBI nod for broking business. So Geo is gonna enter the broking business. Geo BlackRock investment advisors approval for SEBI to launch a stock broking business in the country. So even Ambani is jealous of Kamath's, it seems. So this is the third regulatory clearance granted to joint venture, following approval for its asset management and investment advisory. With the broking license, the venture completes its plan to offer investment advisory, mutual fund, and execution services in India. So that's huge. Execution platform for self-directed investors. That's basically Zerodha. So Geo is gonna make Zerodha. Interesting. Not good news for Mr. Kamath. But he's such a gentleman. He keeps talking about how the broking business is going to slow down. And he's been saying this since 4 years. And the broking business his business has doubled every year almost. And he says that it's gonna slow down. He's like that topper, in our class who says, नहीं है, मेरे को कुछ नहीं आता, मैं पढ़ नहीं पाया हूँ इस बारी और बड़ी प्रॉब्लम है, पता नहीं क्या होगा मार्क्स में, और फिर एकदम से मार्क्स आते हैं तो 50% gross net margin and 40-50%, 100% growth in revenues and so on and so forth. But now it's gonna be tough, right? Because there's so many players entering, especially now Geo, so you can expect something. Anyway, JSW Paints looking at 10,000 crores revenue with AkzoNobel. We talked about this. Wall Street hits a record, erases the losses from tariff biz. So a lot of people were talking about how tariffs are going to ruin everything and so on and so forth. But who won? Trump won. So everybody is essentially back to their space. And Trump says they've made a deal with India, and they made a deal with China. They says we can do anything. We can delay the process. We can accelerate the process. We can just say congratulations, you're gonna pay 25%. That's how he's talking, and apparently it's working because Wall Street is hitting a high. Nvidia is looking at $3.8 trillion of market cap. So Nvidia is like 38% gains. Now this might just be the first time Mr. Peter Thiel has been proven wrong. Mr. Peter Thiel, who is never wrong, who's absolutely almost always been right. It could be this time that he was wrong. He said Nvidia is a temporary monopoly, and whatever Nvidia is facing right now, we could expect it to recede in days to come. And he said it in his characteristic style of extreme intelligence and so on. But Nvidia is not looking at slowing down right now, as far as what we are seeing. So, 3.8 trillion, it's the world's most valuable company, followed by Microsoft. So it's just impossible. I mean, it might just be a $4 trillion. It might just be the world's first company to have a market cap of $4 trillion. Can you imagine that? I can't. Moving on. US and China have signed a trade deal, says Trump. Mr. Bezos having a lavish wedding. Neither of us are invited. I'm assuming. Nobody is joining me from Italy, right? No, Garibs. Anyway, world's biggest cocaine users are in Australia. So per capita consumption of cocaine is highest in Australia, it seems. Now this is the first part of the news which is published, but I go a step further, right? Australia has the highest per capita cocaine consumption, but as per a survey, Australia also has the highest body count. Body count is the number of people you've been sexually involved with. So Australians are said to have the highest body count, highest cocaine consumption per capita, highest body count. Are these two related? Viewers of Thinkers Frequency should analyze. What do you think? Are these two related? Huh? Maybe. Maybe. You never know. You never know. Xiaomi, Turkey is top of the list for body count. Turkey is top of the list for body count? Well, I read a research just yesterday which says Australia is there. But, these researchers, nobody can guess, right? Nobody has actually seen people and counting their body counts, because now we come to the research methodology scrutiny, which is fair, Mr. Perspective. Like, how do you know? How can you be sure of what the respondents have conveyed to you, right? So that's that. But even then, it's an interesting thought, right? Even according to one survey, if that proves. Moving on, Xiaomi has received 289,000 orders for its SUV pre-orders within 1 hour. Within 1 hour. So he says Xiaomi received almost 3 lakh pre-orders within an hour for its first sports utility vehicle in what the company said was miraculous for India, for Chinese automotive industry. My goodness, in just 2 minutes, we received 1,97,000 paid pre-orders. So I wrote an article yesterday about Xiaomi's launch in the automotive sector, $10 billion investment. We talked about this at yesterday's Thinkers Frequency, and they are just like, India should be scared. I even wrote an article about it yesterday because I thought it was very important. So that is that. Anyway, moving forward, Mr. Goyal, Piyush Goyal, yeah, India sells 3.5 lakh cars a month, Mr. Rajakumar, and 40 lakh in a year. So we know about that. Well said. Okay. Meta is facing EU fines. No surprise there. And so is Apple. So EU, European Union, is chasing in on Apple and Meta because of their violations, so to speak, of non-competitive practices and so on and so forth. And these companies are trying to navigate those waters. Now, Europe, unlike China, didn't do anything. Now it's a colony of the US and China, a tech colony. So all it can do is like enforce some sort of norms and regulations because it doesn't have any products of its own, right? So time to pay anyway, or time to extract some money out of it. Mr. Goyal to meet exporters on June 30 amid global tensions. Last month, India's goods exports declined 2.1%, hardly. It's cyclical. 38 because of the Iran, 38 billion. The government is targeting 900 billion in goods and services exports in the current fiscal year 2026, FY26. So 900 billion is what we are targeting this year. Let's see how much we are able to go. ABS and dual helmet must for two-wheelers from next year. So we discussed, viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember that 150cc bikes, above 150cc bikes, they were supposed to have ABS. They always were mandated to have ABS. But cars below 150cc were mandated to have ABS, anti-lock braking system. Anti-lock braking system is that the kind of braking, so that the braking, instead of being static, instead of just having one clamp, it sort of has an RPM kind of a clamp so that the bike doesn't skid. Now this was bad news for Hero stock, and that's exactly what happened. At least that day, Hero stock fell 1.6%. Let's see what is Hero Motorcorp stock doing right now. Stock. So in the last month, it's down 1%. It's in the last month it's down 1%. 5 days it's just holding on 1% up. But in a month, in 6 months, it's up 3%. And the last year it's down 22%. So Hero Motorcorp is already obviously going down because Hero Motorcorp sells the most number of low value bikes. So again, so the government has mandated Hero like 150cc bikes to have ABS and also have a dual helmet that comes with the bike. That's obviously going to be bad for the consumer, right? It's going to be more expensive, and then obviously going to be more expensive for the bike companies. So they're going to sell less units. So it's going to be difficult for bike companies, which are like in the bottom of the barrel segment, cheap bikes, which is majorly Hero. So TVS and Bajaj have been able to premiumize themselves. They are selling expensive bikes. Hero hasn't been able to premiumize itself at all. They had a lousy bike with Harley Davidson, but other than that, they've not been able to sell. So bad news for Hero. Moving on, nearly 88% of workforce of India in low skills role. They say 50% of people are haven't passed. 52% remain below primary level education. 10% of people have completed secondary education. So 10% people, 9.76%, under 10% have completed primary, secondary level of education. 52% just below primary level. And this is the problem that we discussed at Thinkers Frequency, if you remember. India has a skilling gap, you know. Skilling is a huge issue. And you know what India did, right? Recently, the ITI program. So India is trying to develop its own ITI ecosystem by letting private companies run it. So that's a step which India is looking at taking, which could be helpful. How Gen Z is transforming the wedding industry and shaking it up. Many Gen Z couples use social media as a core wedding planning tool, scouring Instagram, Pinterest, TikTok for ideas, advice, and vendors. Well, that's bloody pathetic. Will India grow old before it gets rich? Says Mr. Perspective. So we talked about this. At this moment, we are at 2,500 of per capita income, and our age is 34 or something. And India has fertility rate has come down for the first time in to 1.9, which means our average age is gonna go up. We'll keep growing population wise till 2050 or 60. However, after that, we're gonna see a decline in population. By 2047, the government says we're gonna have a per capita income of $14,000, which is rich. So, according to BJP and the current ruling dispensation, Vikasit Bharat means rich Indians. That means a per capita income of $14,000. So, well, that is before India gets old, right? So, but that's a very optimistic scenario. Let's see how it shapes up. So, a lot of people were scared on how things are going to move forward with, because they said GDP growth is not possible of 10%, but we are already growing at 10% nominally. Of course, inflation adjusted rate come down to 6.5%, but it's possible that we become rich before we become old, but you never know. Speaking of what you never know, these Gen Zs are transforming wedding industry and shaking it up by going on social media, says NYT. And interestingly, US has like one of the highest divorce rates as well. So who knows? With this, we will stop our 34th session of Thinkers Frequency. I had a lovely time talking. This was beautiful. A lot of interaction. Interaction makes it worth it. It's a two-way street. It takes two for tango. And we had a lot of interaction today. So that's great. I hope you had fun at this session, this mental workout, the daily mental workout, and also the daily dose of insights and analysis, which doesn't lead to paralysis, right before we punch in. So have a beautiful day, personally and professionally. I'll see you tomorrow, same place, same time. Hopefully. Bye-bye. Thank you, Mr. Perspective, Mr. Rajakumar, Mr. Amrit Raj, Mr. Patil, Mr. Gupta, Mr. Himanshu Sharma, everybody. Bye-bye.